Hey guys, first off, thank you to everyone for supporting part one of this video series. And please continue to share it as well as this video if you want the public to know the truth about e-tolls. Now, in my previous video, I showed you how e-tolling in Gauteng makes no financial sense using Sanral's figures, and how they're going to have to increase prices by at least 29% each year for 7 years, or the government will have to bail them out to the tune of billions of rands. In part 2, I'm going to show you why the Gauteng Freeway Improvement Project took place, what it entailed, what it really cost, and what Sanral and government are planning to do in the next few years if we cave in now and start paying for e-tolls. Now, prepare yourself for what you're about to see because it isn't pretty. This is the information that Sanral don't want you to know. So first off, to understand how this came about, we need to understand the timeline of events. On the 8th of October 2007, the Gauteng Freeway Improvement Project was officially launched, before even issuing a single government gazette. Later that month, in Government Gazette number 30372, was a line that stated, "The South African National Roads Agency Limited hereby gives notice of its intention to recommend to the Minister of Transport the declaration of the following national road sections as toll roads." It then allowed the public 32 days to comment, and that was that. In this notice, there was no mention of costs involved in any way. All that we were given was a map and an indication that the tolling would be electronic. Naturally, without costs and considering that hardly any South African reads gazettes, public participation was almost nil, and government knew that this would be the case. On this basis, and without any actual public participation, government unilaterally declared all sections mentioned in the Gazette as toll roads in March of 2008, and at that point there was no turning back. In June that year, construction began. Now this is important to note as planning, budgeting and capital raising for such a project takes an incredibly long time, yet we went from first Gazette indicating an intent to actual construction in fewer than 8 months. And we went from declaration to construction in under 3 months. It's clear that this was in the pipelines for years before we were even informed of it, and this is evidenced by presentations Sanral made to government in the years before. We then have to fast forward from first notice to February 2011. In this time, Gauteng residents had been subjected to daily torment from delayed roadworks for years, and we subsequently find out that we've paid an overinflated cost for the roadworks after the construction cartel fixed prices. It appears that there was very little financial prudence in management of this process, which resulted in government paying at least 195 million rand per kilometre in total cost. And since that first announcement of pricing, well, we've been fighting it ever since. A few questions come to mind. How is a citizen expected to submit an informed comment about a proposal without knowing the costs associated with it? Why was pricing delayed for such a long time? And if government knew the costs of construction and capital, how could they have not known the costs motorists would be charged? Either they intentionally delayed publication of the pricing, or they had absolutely no clue what it would be, and they approved 36 billion rands worth of debt in our names without any idea whether they could recover it or not. Now, considering they had no public comment up until that point, they also had no idea whether the South African public at large would be willing to pay in the first place. And as it turns out, we absolutely are not. Now, over the years, we've uncovered some pretty startling details about the costs of this project, even though they were hidden from the public for such a long time. Here's one piece of information that is going to blow you away. In 2006, a joint proposal by the Gauteng Freeway Improvement Project team estimated that initial costs for 359 kilometers of freeway improvements would be 6.3 billion rand. This is the basis on which government approved the project. Then, fast forward to February 2008, the estimated cost of phase 1 of the project had increased to 14.3 billion rand, and this was now for only 185 kilometers of freeway improvements. Now, in 2013, with 185 kilometers of improvements finally completed, Sanral sit with long-term debt on their books of over 36 billion rand, even after paying some portions of the debt off already. This is an increase of more than 1,100% in costs. So, still think that they've been honest with us? Still think that this is something you want to support? Well, let me show you what happens if you do pay e-tolls. Phase 1 of the GFIP was for 185 kilometers and cost in excess of 36 billion rand. Sanral's Phase 2 kicks in the moment they receive sufficient support for Phase 1, and this is where it gets further shocking. Phase 2 is planned for 223 kilometers of road, so we can expect to pay at least 21% more for Phase 2. And yes, it is planned for all over Johannesburg as well. So not only will we be paying off 36 billion rand in debt through e-tolls, but we'll now be paying at least another 43 billion rand for Phase 2. We'll also be paying 2014 prices, so far more than what it cost us in 2008, and therefore far more than 43 billion rand. Sanral's debt rating has also decreased, and so their cost of capital has gone through the roof, and that's another cost element that we need to add to that 43 billion rand. And remember that at no point would Sanral have actually have built any new roads or any new routes at all, as they should be doing. This is also money that we're not going to be putting into investments into a proper public transport system. This is wasted away on surfacing existing roads and building gantries and perhaps adding a lane here and there. But if it's new roads that you want, then prepare yourself for Phase 3 of the GFIP, which is 158 kilometers of new routes. Now, instead of doing this from the outset, they chose to just toll existing roads first and leave actual infrastructure improvements for later. Question begs, why? And it's quite simple. It's because it's not about improving roads. It's about generating more money for government. And if it cost us 195 million rand per kilometer to surface existing roads in 2008, imagine what it's going to cost to build 158 kilometers of brand new roads in 2016. Now, I don't have an issue with new roads being built. In fact, I welcome it. But why wasn't this done first? My main gripe is also that this government seemed hell-bent on spending as much of our money as possible without any oversight thereof. Corruption, price fixing, nepotism, and theft have become hallmarks of nearly every large project this government has undertaken, and it shows no signs of changing. So, if you think that wasting what is going to be hundreds of billions of rands on road resurfacing that should have been paid for from taxes we already pay is a good idea, then go ahead and buy your e-tag, fit it to your car, and fund the lavish lifestyle of Austrian executives at Capsch, the price-fixing executives at the construction companies, the corrupt politicians probably behind this project, and the future erosion of the South African economy. Or, if you object to e-tolls, take a stand against it. Don't support it. Don't buy an e-tag, and more importantly, find any reason not to pay, or if you have to pay, find reasons to delay your payment. We have no other option left but to fund this from the National Fuel Levy. The money has been spent by government, and it must be repaid, but I refuse to do so using e-tolls, and I demand that people be held to account for this travesty of justice. And you should too. So let's recap. If you choose to pay for e-tolls now, you're supporting the further implementation of e-tolls around Johannesburg and actually around the country, as e-tolling is planned for Cape Town, Durban, and numerous other cities. If you choose to pay for e-tolls, you're supporting a system that was supposed to cost 6 billion rand, but has landed up costing over 36 billion rand, and you're giving your tacit approval to that sort of thing. And if you think that's bad, Phase 2 is going to cost in excess of 43 billion rand, and Phase 3 even more than that. And at no point will anyone be held to account for this, because you've chosen to support it. It's time we take the power back into our hands as citizens, and make government accountable to us. The only way to do that is to ignore government's empty threats. When they start threatening their citizens, you can be guaranteed that they do not have your best interests at heart. So take a stand against e-tolls and make your voice heard. Thank you for watching, and please share this video far and wide. It's the only way we get the message out there.